Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our WebYeshiva mini-series on the Maggid portion of the Hagadah. And our technical director, Amichai, he suggested this idea to focus in on the Maggid, and I like the idea. And so we're continuing that idea tonight, but we're going to do it a little bit tangential, and we're going to come full circle. But we're going to begin with a story from the Lubavitcher Rebbe that he tells about the Baal Shem Tov. So it's a good connection. Tlost, the name of a town somewhere in the Ukraine, or Alsace or the southern Russia, wherever the borders over there move daily. I think they still do. Tlost was originally a walled town, the Rebbe writes, but at some point in history, the walls were destroyed, leaving numerous trenches. You know, every wall has to have a foundation. You tear out the wall, out goes the foundation. So there are these trenches around the city. It's pretty strange. The Baal Shem Tov's parents were so desperately poor that they could not afford even a modest home in which to live. So they sought refuge in one of these trenches. Can you imagine a trench? Like it just angular sides of dirt, no? But they're going to live down there in a trench. And that is where the Baal Shem Tov was born. And this explains why he used to sign his name Yisrael from the Trench. Like, sounds like a World War II movie, right? Or World War I. But Yisrael, Baal Shem Tov, this tremendous leader of spirituality, was born in a trench. And that's where they lived. Now, how long it lasted, God forbid, it was a winter. Well, while the Baal Shem Tov himself was not the actual Mashiach, the text continues, we are nevertheless promised that the mystical revival which he initiated will ultimately be responsible for ushering in the Messianic era. So that's a big statement right there. That the Messianic era was started and begun by this baby that was born in a trench by super poor people. And this person who came from such a low place, well, socioeconomically, would reach the highest place a human being can go, pretty much. And he will usher in the Messianic era. Now, there's another side story I'm going to add to this, that the Baal Shem Tov, they asked the question in another sefer, how did his parents merit to this mitzvah to be the parents of the Baal Shem Tov, who would transform the Jewish world? And so the story is not quite like this one. It's a little different. It says that the Baal Shem Tov's father had a mitzvah that he did, and nobody knew about it. Nobody knew about this mitzvah he did. It was, we don't know if it was tzedakah or if it was, passing out food to the poor, which is also, of course, tzedakah. We don't know what it was. And so before he was chosen as the father of the Baal Shem Tov, in heaven there was a question, and God sent Eliyahu Navi to test Rabbi Eliezer, the Baal Shem Tov's father. So, of course, the Eliyahu Navi doesn't usually show up and tell it with a name tag. I'm Elijah the prophet. I'm 1700 years old. at your convention, they wear name tags. The Baal Shem Tov shows up, answers the door one day, and here's this guy who looks like an Arab shepherd, because that's how he often appeared. And he said, listen, I know you do a special deed, a very good deed. And I want to know what that good deed is. And Rabbi Eliezer looked at him and said, I'm not going to tell you what my personal relationship with God is or what my special mitzvah is. And he says, but listen, I have to tell you, I'm not who you think I am. I am Eliyahu Navi, and I can promise you a place in heaven next to me in the world to come. Now, who would ask for a bigger lottery ticket than that? And the Baal Shem Tov's father, Rabbi Eliezer, said, no, I'm not telling you what my special mitzvah is between me and God. That's between me and God. And so Eliyahu left. He went up to the throne. He saw Hashem. He said, Hashem, this man, Rabbi Eliezer, he does not reveal what his great mitzvah was. And so God, he's got a lot of patience. He says, well, go down and test him again. Test him again. So Elijah shows up and he says, listen, I've just spoken with God. They really want to know what this special mitzvah that you did was. He said, I'm sorry, I can't reveal it. It doesn't matter. You offer me wealth in this world, offer me wealth in the next world. I'm not going to tell you. And they argued. Finally, Elijah gave up. He went back to Hashem. Hashem said, okay, we bless him. He's going to be the father of the Baal Shem Tom. So you see, there's something going on here because what was the whole thing was his hiding of the mitzvah, being so modest and personal and intimate with the mitzvah that he did, that he wouldn't even tell the great prophet for a reward of the world to come. He wouldn't even tell that. So there's a hiding thing. This is important. It's connected to Purim as well. This idea of hiding is really the secret of revealing. If you go look at my YouTube channel from, I don't know how long ago, maybe a year, 2, 3, I did some talks about this, about that hiding is really this for the sake of revealing, and revealing is only always with the level of hiding coming with it. So we hide, this is really a Purim vort, but on Purim we dress up in a costume. Now what am I doing? Am I hiding my real self? Or am I really revealing my true self by putting on a costume as a projection of something inside that's hidden, and I want to reveal it? So, I'm 11 years old and I put on my Superman outfit because I want to show the world I think I'm Superman. But I can't tell people that, but I can wear the costume on Purim. So there you see he's hiding, but he's really doing it to reveal. And another person, he's a great rabbi, and he wears very simple, very, very simple clothes on Purim, and he looks like some guy off the street. He's hiding in order not to reveal something about himself, per se, let's say. And so here, Rabbi Eliezer was hiding his mitzvah, and because of that, his son was blessed to be a revealer of Torah. You see, he hid his Torah mitzvah, and the Baal Shem Tov became the one who revealed the most Torah of the Arizal than anybody else, in terms of the amount of Chassidut that he derived from learning the Eitz Chaim and learning Shar Kavanot and learning all the Shmoni Sharim of the Arizal. The Baal Shem Tov became who he was. Now, he was also a part of the secret society of Nistarim. Okay, we're going to circle back to this soon. But the commentator says, while the Baal Shem Tov himself was not the actual Mashiach, we were promised that the mystical revival, Lashon, is the same language in Hebrew and English as revealing. Right? A revival has to do with revealing. You could make that English drush if you wanted. And he will ultimately be responsible for bringing in this messianic era. Thus, the above story, telling this story, which Rabbi Shalom Dov Bero Lubavitch concluded from the Baal Shem Tov's trenches, being born in the lowest place possible, we have been granted the strength to get out of the other trenches that all of us find ourselves in. For the Baal Shem Tov's influence is unfaltering. Now, one cannot help, the Rebbe goes on, but marvel at the irony here. The enormous influence of the Baal Shem Tov, which will eventually be responsible for the global utopia You see how the author links it together. I don't believe this is, maybe this is the Rebbe's paraphrased words, maybe it's the editor, but that he's responsible for bringing in global utopia in the future era. Had such pitiful and humble beginnings. Like, how do you make a home in a trench? They didn't have, like all this high-grade, fancy water-resistant fabric that they use for all the, winter coats that people go to the North Pole in. All men will one day enjoy wealth and physical abundance thanks to a person who lived in a trench. But this precisely is the point. As King David pointed out of the straits I called upon God. Me amakim karati Yah, vayhi li lishua. And he will it will bring on a salvation. So from the narrow place, I get the revelation. It's when you're really struck down, when you feel lost, you feel like you don't have anything to give to the world anymore, you don't have any new ideas, nobody comes to talk to you, your old friends forgot your phone number, whatever it is, you get to a certain stages in life where you're like, where'd everybody go? Rabbi Yisrael Odesser, the father of the Nanach group, and the one who was given a petek from Rabbi Nachman, he said, they asked him, what's it like to be 106? And he said, well, I don't know anybody anymore. Think about that answer for a second. I don't know anybody anymore. That's kind of scary. Unless you're you're an isolationist anyways, which I don't think most people are. But here, they're bringing it rather to connect it to the Maggid and to the Pesach and to the reading of the Hagadah. The very wide can only come after we've constrained from the very narrow. So this is one of the things that first struck me. The person who keeps, the Pirkei Avot says, the person who keeps the Torah when he's poor will eventually keep the Torah when he's rich. So I took that to the bank. I said, okay, that's it. I'm banking on Hashem's promise, and we're still waiting for the payoff. Let's believe it's coming. Now, but see, so it's that movement, that spiritual movement from the narrow place to the wide place. So that's part of what's happening in the Hagadah, that we're starting from a very small place. Hey, lachma anya. This is the bread of affliction, which is also connected to the word of aniut, which is poverty. Di achalu avtana ba'ara di Mitzrayim. Right? These our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. It's all about beginning in the tight place, in this constriction place. And so when we kind of make peace with that process, okay, I'm in constriction now. I lost this, I lost that, this happened, that happened, whatever it is, big or small, it feels like a constriction, You could be a very wealthy person and lose something personal and it still hurts like you're a kid losing your first dollar. And the Rebbe goes on, the fact that it follows right after the heading Maggid, this idea of the bread of affliction, the bread of narrowness, we tell the Exodus story. And this is, about our ancestors' departure from Egypt. But what happened down there? They were slaves. They were in the narrowest place you could get on every level. And they were brought out into the wide spaces of the Red Sea, and now we're in front of a sea, and now they got to go back into the narrow place of the pathway through the water to come out to an even wider place. And then they go out they get the Torah from the small mountain Sinai, and then everything looks really big. If you learn the Kabbalah and the Midrash on how the Jews, what happened to them when they received the Torah, they went back to Gan Eden before the sin. Now, that's like an easy sentence to run off from your mouth. But to try to conceive of what it was like to be Adam and Eve before the sin, that's to be higher than the angels. You're closer to God than the angels. You're his right-hand man. You're Adam. You contain all human souls. What a broad place. And then all of a sudden he was squeezed. I hope I didn't use this line before, but I'm going to risk it. And he was squeezed back into a body in this world after the sin. They weren't in a body the way we understand bodies then. They were huge beacons of light. And this guy who went through an NDE, near-death experience, said when I came back into my body, it was like forcing a whale into a tuna can. That's not my quote. This guy said it, but it made perfect sense. Because when you're not in your body, you can just expand. You're not being held because your soul is not a body that's bound by skin and bone and muscle, etc. So that expansion is really what Pesach is about. And on Leil Seder, the Arizal writes for us a very clear formula of how we receive new consciousness through the course of the night of the Seder, whether we do it all or not, whether we learn Kabbalah or not, whether all we got to do is keep the basic laws of Yom Tov and keep the Seder, and remember that when we go to say the Maggid, the main point, the Rav brings in this other Hagadah. I brought down several Hagadah to work with from this. He says that the main point, and he brings a pasuk from the Torah about it, is that we teach our children, that we try to make it curious to our children. They want to ask, what's going on tonight? What's different? And so that difference is all the difference. Oh, my daughter's calling from Colombia, South America. I can't take it. I'm sorry, folks. Ima, call Hannah, tell her. We have this wonderful daughter. She was almost 2 years in New Zealand. Now she went to Colombia. She's like on a world tour. She was in Nepal and India and all over the place. That's what you do when you're before you want to knuckle down. Okay. So we're moving from this constriction to this expansion. Now everybody's got their own places of constriction, as we understand. And everybody has their own places of expansion. But the master, the Rabbi Nachman explains in Nikuti Moran, is the one who knows how to expand and contract with God. Expand when it's Friday night, that's expansion time. Shabbos morning, more expansion. Shabbos afternoon, even more expansion until Mincha. Right? And then what happens, though, after the big expansion of Shabbat, you get the constriction of Saturday night. Oh, what am I going to do now? It was Shabbos. Now it's not Shabbos. Everybody's gone. The food's gone. And you're like, I'm supposed to make fourth meal here for King David, but I don't feel like eating anything. And so on and so forth. The Saturday night is a time where we're going back to constriction. And so expansion, constriction, same idea. It happens every day from Shachris to Mincha to Mariv through the course of the day. If you just follow the sun, how the sun is constricted in the morning and it expands until the great midday sun, and then it contracts and gets smaller and weaker as the day goes on. You see this cycle everywhere. You see it in the plant kingdom, in the animal kingdom, in the human kingdom, everywhere. This same cycle. So the Hagadah is really a replication of the Jewish experience as a nation being born out of Egypt, being led to the greatest human event ever, the receiving of the Torah in the middle of the desert in nowhere, and receiving all the miracles that went with it. This is a massive transformation from the constricted state of being a slave in Egypt to being a free nation out there in the desert. And that's what the Hagadah is really wants to point out to us, and that's one of the reasons why it starts out with Hey lach ma'amanya, Anya. This is the bread of affliction, because what could be more constricted than you take a little cracker thin piece of matzah, and this is going to be the main focus of the dinner? That's enough to scare anybody away, especially if you know what matzah does to some people. Now, but still, we see, again, just the idea of bread is constricted. It used to be a nice, thick, soft loaf, warm bread, and now it's this dry, thin cracker. What happened? Well, what happened is the same thing that we're talking about, this process of constriction to expansion. And part of being the master also, the Rebbe teaches us, is recognizing when we're in constriction before we lose it, before the meltdown, before the words we regret, before the actions that we regret. That's part of what the mastery of the derech is to say, wait, no, I need to stop right now. I'm sorry, I need to stop. I can't talk anymore. I feel my heart is getting tight. My words are getting more stressful, more aggressive, more, angry, perhaps even. All those things mean stop. Just stop. That is the secret of turning the constriction into the expansion. Stopping the constriction before it's too late. Once it's too late and we hurt somebody, we hurt ourselves, etc., then, well, we have to deal with ourselves still. Either way we do. But I think that the real point here is we hold up the thin bread, this bread of affliction, and we're making a big promise to everybody at the Seder that night, that this little piece of, this little cracker is going to lead to a massive Suda that you're going to, you're going to walk home very slowly when you get finished with all that lamb. Lamb is the best thing to serve on Pesach. I'm sorry. I don't know. I know that lamb is not that popular in the States, but over here, you can count on one thing. In Israel, all the grocery stores fill up with lamb before Pesach. It's kind of like that. Okay. So, the Hagadah here and the Maggid, which is, of course, the reading of it, the recitation, but the Maggid, again, as we said last week, is the speaker, the one who focuses people's attention. That's a lot of responsibility. But you watch a rock concert, a guy's just singing and screaming up on stage, and you got 50,000 people or more are like enthralled. Okay, music is music, but still, that guy knows he's focusing attention on what he's saying or singing. And same thing with a good politician. The first thing you do is get up there, you don't say anything, you look around the audience. You look at people, you look them in the eye. I got something here I need to share, right? And so there's something to the I want to use the word dramatic, that's a little bit overstated, but there's something to being the leader of a Seder where it is people are looking for you to lead them out of the constriction. Tonight we're going to leave our constriction. Now 4 glasses of wine will usually lubricate that process pretty good. But a lot of people can't drink 4 glasses of wine. That's just the reality. However, it's important if you're leading a Seder or you're going to a Seder that's being led by someone you're connected to understand what's going on, to see the interesting thing is to watch people get into it. Because they go to a Seder. People come to a Seder, get 20 people here. You're looking around the room. Not everybody here is so religious or so experienced. And when you see that their eyes get caught by the story, then there's something miraculous going on. Now, when we go forward, we go from this great declaration of our poverty, from this bread of affliction, the bread of constriction, which is going to lead to expansion. All who are hungry, let them come and eat. That's an expanded idea. All who are needy, let them come and conduct the Pesach Seder. Another expansive idea. Now we are here. Now I'm adding the quotation marks, in constriction. Next year we will be in the land of Israel. Now we are slaves. Sounds like constriction. Slaves to whatever master we set. Next year we will be free men. Again, the reiteration of the idea. And there we go, of course, to the 4 questions. Ma nishtana halayla hazeh. What's happening? What's the point of the questions? To get the kids involved, yes. To get the kids to answer, yes. To get to set a tone of this Hagadah here is going to teach us things. And if you're the wise son, you're going to ask questions and you're going to listen to answers and you're going to enter the shakla v'tarya, as they call it in Aramaic, the questioning and answering of learning of Torah, which takes place in every Beit Midrash in the world, that we're entering a process. And these 4 questions are important because you got the wise son and the foolish son, and you got the one who doesn't even know, and you got the evil one also. And so each of these are states of mind. They're not meant to be for individuals because we all have a little bit of all those 4 individuals. So again, we're acknowledging a constriction. That there is a part of us that doesn't even know how to ask. There's a part of us that even wants to contradict the leader. There's a part of us that says, I don't care. Well, tell me what this is about. So these are all states of constriction that we're trying to work through. Now goes on the Hagadah further. We're questioning the menu. Yeah, we eat vegetables all year long, and now we're eating these herbs that the rabbits eat out in the garden. Come on. And it's bitter. And now every other time we eat it sitting up, and now we're lying down, which doesn't sound too bad. We usually put out the couches and everybody reclines. But that usually devolves into people falling off the couch or something. Again, we're back to being slaves. Avadin ayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim. Yotzianu Hashem Elokeinu misham biyad hazakah b'zron netuya. He took us out of there with a powerful arm and a powerful hand and an outstretched arm. Again, constriction to expansion, happening over and over. When we learn these principles, though, and even when you just open up any chumash, wherever you open, you'll see the processes and the patterns. Because this is how life works. And the rabbis in their genius are always trying to design ways to lead us to the expansion, to lead us out of the constriction. And he goes on to tell us, if God did not take us out of there, well, behold, our sons and our sons, grandsons, etc., would still be enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Like, I don't know, is his name Sisi? That's an outside joke. Now, but afilu is interesting because it's really taken in a humble sense. And even if we were all hachamim and wise people and understanding people, and we know the whole Torah, that's a very wide place, right? Mitzvah it's still the mitzvah is telling the story. It's not about gaining knowledge in your private account. And the more you tell about the Yetziah from Mitzrayim, the more praiseworthy it is. So again, the rabbis, the authors, and the authors of the Hagadah, remember, it wasn't one person, it was a group of Hachamim, wise people from the end of the Second Temple period, and the Hagadah needed to be written down. Now you can imagine, how is it also possible? We have this giant Mishnah, 6,000 Mishnayot. We have this giant oral tradition, which was just forming, because remember, before the destructions of the temple, everything was concentrated in Israel. It wasn't spread out to the world. And so, but these men got together and they put together Hagadah with all the hindsight that helps an author put together a book. And now we jump straight to a scene in Bnei Brak. So we've jumped forward many years since the event itself and since the beginning of the retelling of the event. And so we're already jumping forward to a place in Bnei Brak at the time when all the great masters, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, etc., were all having Pesach together. Can you imagine being part of that Pesach? I would have done the dishes. I would have swept the floor to be there. These guys, the greatest of the great, were all learning together and keeping the Seder together. And, I think that, we can just wonder about the power of being in such an event. I mean, that's part of the reason why we go to the graves of the righteous here in Eretz Israel, because there is power focused there, and each one has its own permutation of the power. So that's another side issue, but still, what we're mapping here tonight is the expansion from contraction that takes place in every person, every day of your life, and sometimes it's big and sometimes it's small. But the main thing, the smaller the contraction, the bigger the expansion. And so, if you ever think that God shorted you, then maybe I need to reframe the way I look at it, because there is a famous statement also in the Talmud that says nobody was as wealthy. I can't remember the names of all the rabbis, but nobody was ever as wealthy as Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, and no one was ever as poor as so and so. And then the Talmud brings an example of somebody who was totally poor, and Hashem made him rich, and how people all had to overcome their challenge. Because, think about it for a second. Let's say you're the wealthiest guy in town. You don't have a bank. You don't have an electronic lock. You don't have your money safe. There's no such things as banks. Maybe you put your money by a friend who has a big house. I know people who do this today. They don't want to put their money in a bank. They give it to somebody else, and he holds it for them. It's not unusual. But the point is you see that these people, they lived under conditions we cannot imagine. And if you ever think that it's bad, you've got to remember that, because the constriction that they went through was the preparation for the great expansion that they brought to us, to bring us the oral Torah, to bring us the written Torah, to bring us all the traditions, because we're still learning their books. It's an ironic thing here in Israel. It's a little sad, but when a big rabbi dies, it could be up to 500,000 people show up for his funeral. I was at a few of those. It's beyond. You can't even get out on the sidewalk. It's so packed. And then a great famous person, a rock star or a politician, he passes away. Maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen people show up at the funeral. So what's going on? Why are all the Orthodox people showing up for the funeral of the rabbi, but not that many people are showing up for the funeral of we're not talking about people that die suddenly in a shocking way, which arouses everybody. We're talking about a normal lifespan. A few people show up, but because the religious people honor and respect these sages, because they know that these are the people that are helping guide their own lives. Whereas, I tried hard, but I never got much guidance out of a lot of rock and roll back in the day. Okay. But it's something to marvel at, really. So there you have it. One person dies, the whole city turns out. That's a constriction to an expansion. A tremendous show. And you know what you experience when you go to those funerals? You don't experience, you can cry, you can feel sadness and loss, but you experience the wonder of the dedication. To see this dedication on the streets of Jerusalem, you think, these guys over there at the CIA, are they so dedicated to the CIA? Are the soldiers so dedicated to their general? I wonder. But that's part of the whole idea of the Torah. It has a paradigm built into it that guides us, whereas most of the world leaders and traditions and intellectual ideas do not give us that. Okay, now we see a very interesting story. I'm Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Harei ani kabed 70 shana. I'm like 70 years old now. He was a young man. He was in his 20s when this happened. He said, suddenly, I'm like 70. How could that be? Lo zachishi te'amar yetziat Mitzrayim b'leilot. And I didn't understand why. I didn't merit to understand the idea of Yetziat Mitzrayim b'leilot. The idea that we not only mention the going out of Egypt during the daytime, because that's the time of day where you came, by the time that all Am Yisrael was ready to roll, it was morning, sun was coming up, They started out at around Hatzot, but can you imagine getting 3.2 million Jews into the same parade? Good luck, and all their animals. So, but he says, I didn't understand how it was that it was mentioned at daytime and mentioned at nighttime. And then he said, Shneimar lama'an tizkor et yom tzeitcha me'eretz Mitzrayim. The Torah says clearly that you remember the day of coming out of Egypt, all the days of your life. It doesn't mention nighttime. Yimei chayecha hayamim. Kol yimei chayecha. No, but the word kol, just that two-letter word kol, all the days of your life. If you say all your day, how was all your day tonight, Eliza? What would you think? That's a weird question, Avraham. How was all your day? Well, it was 24 hours. Oh, you mean it was 24 hours long? Oh, that means the question implies your night as well. All your day, all your days and your nights. So I think that's what it's touching on here, because night is the classic idea of constriction, and day is the expansion, as we mentioned earlier. So again, the paradigm. And it just repeats itself over and over, and I think I'm going to stop here. Well, I should finish the drush. Yemei chayecha, the days of your life. Now they go on to another level altogether. What is this entire world? The nighttime, the dark, the constriction, the ignorance, the lack of the knowledge of God. Yemei chayecha, your days, olam hazeh. Kol yemei chayecha, all the days of your life. That is to bring us to the days of the Mashiach. So the Mashiach is tying itself into the Hagadah throughout. And maybe we'll look at that more next week. But I think we're going to stop, take a short break, and then we're going to do a meditation. Okay. Okay. Let's get ready to begin. Get comfortable. Ooh. Got to do a lot of yoga to get comfortable in this world. Or Jewish stretching. Let's call it that. I call it letter stretching. So let's relax. Let's leave the day behind. All the thoughts, all the efforts, all the energy, any stress, any disappointment. Let's just leave it all behind. All we have is now. Well, that's really all we need. So sitting comfortably with our spine as straight as we can make it for now, and our shoulders back, that helps open up our lungs. Our head up, that opens up the trachea, the windpipe, because what is better than fresh air? What is better than breathing deep and returning to our center? Returning to who we really are. And letting go of who we are not. And this redefining of self is essential for the redemption, because we're trying to move from 2,000 years of exile into a few years of redemption. We're trying to move from something we were not, false identity, an identity inherited from suffering, from homelessness, from poverty. And even if I don't have money in the bank, I have such wealth of ideas surrounding our minds, surrounding our hearts, surrounding our bookshelves. The amount of information available to us online. We are wealthy. We are more wealthy than any generation that ever existed. On one sense, in the sense of availability of knowledge. And yet the mind feels small. How much can I hold at one time? How many new ideas can I string together? But perhaps it's not about how many ideas. Perhaps it's about one idea. And that idea is my constriction of now, of today, of the smallness of consciousness that my experience brought me today. That's where we need to go. That's our little micro Egypt. Our little nano enslavement. Some people call it a trance. We just lose who we really are. Next thing you know, we're repeating behaviors that we know for a long, long time. Those are the places the light has yet to touch. Those trances of imaginary pain, imaginary insult, imaginary fear. It's all happening in the imagination. We don't know what will be 5 minutes from now. We might have a good idea, but we really don't know. And if we lived in the not knowing and made peace with the ignorance of not knowing, the not knowing becomes a place of faith. But I do know. I know my Father knows. I know my King knows. I know the spark of God in me knows what I need to know in a conscious sense. So let's breathe deep, really deep. Let's inhale like it's the first breath we ever took in this world. Let's hold it like a gift. But then, like all gifts, eventually we got to let them go. But there's another one. Another gift of breath. Massaging the heart. Smoothing the terrain of our fear. And we remember we're not alone. We have a God who has our back. That's why he's our God. Who needs a God if he doesn't have your back? And it's so wonderful, so awesome to know this, to live with this. And you want to give it to the whole world. It's so good. that moment of wanting to give what you have to the world, that's your redemption moment. That's when the doors are open, wide. Your arms are open wide. And for a moment, we're fearless, except of going on the wrong side of the highway and forgetting our Creator. Breathe deep, let it all go. One day, we will be permanently free from this constricted space, this planet of constriction. Are we ready for that big expansion? Have we integrated the idea that the smaller the space we have to go through, the greater the expansion will be? And if your constriction is so unbearably small that you can't even get through it, you feel like you can't get through it, it's too much. Oh, that is the moment of surrender. And just, God, I can't, but I know you can. I know you can. I know you can and you will. And I don't have to dictate your reality or mine. So this period before Passover, imagine you're in Egypt. You're part of a 3.2 million community of slaves. Talk about overloaded. There's no prison system going to hold them down. And then this prophet says, we're out of here in a few nights. What are you going to do? You start packing your bags, packing your donkeys and your camels, packing your kids. What chaos, pandemonium, what noise. How can you think a straight thought? The whole country is being uprooted and moved straight out the gates of Egypt. Can we be calm then? Can we have our wits about us? Can we keep our eyes on all our kids and grandkids? Can you imagine the amount of letting go we have to do to get out of that narrow space of Egypt and hit the desert with a smile and the beaming face of the newly freed slave? Can we go there? My friends, we have to go there. We don't have a choice, especially as Jews, because we receive the manual. We receive the playbook of how to free the soul from the body, how to free the individual from the community to a degree, how to free the nation from all the other nations. It's all in there. We can't escape it, but we can escape our idea of it, my limited idea of it, what it really means to be a Jew on Pesach. I want freedom. Forget about Pesach. I need freedom. Pesach says, no, just stay with me. You'll get all your freedom. The night of Seder. The four Mochin come down of Kabbalah, the Abba and Ima, Ben and Bat. the 4 brain powers that activate consciousness, they're all returned to us in full the night of the Seder, just like they received it when they got on their donkeys and camels and left Egypt. And that new mental power of moving through the constriction into the expansion, that new mental power stays with you for, guarantee you, through the night and most likely into the morning. And if you really know how to hold on to it, perhaps through all of Pesach. That higher self that you know you have, that you've been, that you lost, that comes back, that goes again. It's there. It's there waiting to jump into our brain. That higher vision, that higher perception. That us that we really know is our true self. So let us breathe with the peace of the free. Let our hearts beat with the pace of one who knows redemption. Let our mind travel with joy wherever it needs to go. From Egypt to Israel, from sadness to joy, from loneliness to love, from poverty to wealth, from small-heartedness to gratitude. They're all there for us. Tonight, and especially in a few more weeks on Passover night. May we all receive the true freedom. The true freedom of the Torah and the words of wisdom and inspiration that will never, ever let us down. And when we know that, we're free. We're already free. So it will be for all humanity one day. Amen. Oh. Okay. Well, I hope that was useful and helpful and empowering. You know, these ideas, we have to repeat them. They're very slippery ideas. Because we can go from expanded consciousness to constricted consciousness in the minute of, someone taking your parking space, We can, the nature of it is so tenuous, let's call it. But when you learn to ride, the horse is not so scary. So I bless all of you to practice this work. And all you need to do is just catch yourself. All we got to do is catch ourselves in those little moments of constriction and remember, wait. This is not me. I don't need to be unhappy about this. I don't need to get involved in this. And, you catch yourself and you grow. It's amazing. So if anybody has any comments, insights, I see we have a few chats over here. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Yaakov, out there in the big sky. Thank you also, Lisa. So we have a few more weeks, 2 more classes, I believe. Yes. So we'll look forward to more of these Tuesday nights. We've been teaching on WebYeshiva for 15 years on Thursday nights. So to switch to Tuesday, that was like you have to rewire the software. Got to give the guy a new download. But we did it tonight. We made Tuesday. So hopefully we'll see you again next Tuesday. Then we'll have a break for Pesach, and we'll carry on with our foundations in Kabbalah. And of course, as I've mentioned once in a while, if there's any ideas or questions, comments that you'd like to share, you can write me at Shira@gmail.com. Or you can mention them here. Or I always try to accommodate. It's part of what we do. So have a great Shabbat. Well, it's too early to say that, right? On Tuesday night? It's not really too early, but I'm just used to saying it on Thursday night. But it should be a great week building up to Shabbat. We might be going to the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron, be with some of our family. And again, my invitation is open to all of you. Any of you come to Israel, you have to visit. We'll put you up. We're building small homes now around the land, so it should be a little more expansive by the time you all get here. God bless. Have a great week, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure, Mike.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And my privilege. Thank you.